yeah, good job. This is the Los Angeles Motor Scale. So hopefully you came with somebody that you're friends with. If not, make friends with the person next to you. Let's make sure they're not having a stroke. So the first thing I want you to do is look at your friend and ask them to smile. If there's no facial droop, they score a 0. If you see any asymmetry, you score them a 1. Hopefully everyone's a 0. Now I want you to ask your friend to hold both arms up straight in front of them. You are not having a stroke if they stay right there. If one of them slowly falls down, you score them a 1. If they have no strength at all and it just drops, you score them a 2. Now I want you to make cross fingers like you're wishing for good luck, and then have your friend or your partner squeeze your fingers as hard as they can. So we're checking grip strength. If they're both equal, they score 0. If they're weak on one side, they score a 1. If they can't grip you at all, they score a 2. If you score 0, you're not having a stroke more than likely, or you're not having a large muscle occlusion more than likely. Anything above 0, we should be concerned. Does anybody think their partner is having a stroke? Good. So given that no one's having a stroke, I'll continue. So to tell you a little more about me, I'm a father, a husband, and a nurse. There's a little more to know about me. I care and love a few things. I love going to concerts with my wife, who is here today to support me. If you've never been here, this is Red Rocks, Colorado. The amphitheater is built into the rocks, and it's really cool. If you haven't been, I highly recommend it. Despite my advanced age for the activity, I love skateboarding, especially with my son. And I love putting purpose to my practice. This is me and my family in El Bosque de Chapultepec in the city of Mexico, or Mexico City, where I learned that just because I can competently perform a stroke code in Spanish doesn't mean I can navigate Mexico City as easily. But more importantly for today, I love nursing research, and inspiring the next generation of young nurses. And my colleagues at Marina Hospital will vouch, I never miss the opportunity to grab a new grad or grab a student and drag them with me to a code stroke. I didn't always love nursing. I came to it a little bit later in my career. I started as a personal trainer. My idea was to do that until I got my degree, which I technically did, but it was a very long time. That became unfulfilling and frankly, kind of unstable. Thanks to my sister for dating. She's a doctor. She dated some male nurses, and I realized, oh, I might be able to do that. I didn't think men couldn't be nurses. I just never thought about it. So I went to SMC, went to the information session there, and started down this path. I started as a CNA, and I went to nursing school at Cal State Los Angeles. And I really had no idea what nursing was at the time. I couldn't believe pressure injuries were a thing when I first saw one. It was shocking to me. From there, I went into telemetry, transferred into the ICU, and spent all of COVID in the ICU, which is when I learned how politics and medicine really intersect. I'm sure we all remember how charged that time was. I got coffee. Sorry. And then currently I work in stroke from both the clinical and the administrative aspect. Now I'll move on to the presentation. So what is nursing research? When I was in nursing school, I kind of thought, that sounds a little goofy. I don't know what nursing research really is. But I was totally wrong on that front. Nursing research is systematic, evidence-based. It generates hypotheses and makes predictions. It can be qualitative or quantitative. It can be statistically rigorous and objective, or experience-based and subjective. It also follows ethical standards. So now you might be thinking, that just sounds like research. How is nursing research any different? And I have some thoughts on that. The NIH says this. Guess I won't read it from that. nursing research develops knowledge and about health and the promotion of health over the full lifespan, care of persons with health problems and disabilities, and nursing actions to enhance the ability of individuals to respond effectively to actual or potential health problems. But I would add a few things to this. Nursing research is done by nurses. Its contents are things nurses think about and care about. Its findings directly impact nursing care and patient outcomes, and its findings directly impact nursing policy. And going back to the NIH definition and where it intersects with my current research, it is about ensuring that the care needs of particularly vulnerable groups are met through appropriate strategies. So hopefully I've convinced you that nursing research is a worthwhile endeavor. So now you might be wondering, well, how do I start? My recommendation is that if you find a thread, you pull on it. Because the current project did not begin its life as a study of disparities. It began with a completely unrelated question, which was, why are we seeing so many cerebellar strokes? Take a breath for a second. Okay, so if you haven't been in nursing school recently and you don't work in stroke, you might have forgotten. So I need to give you some background on the stroke stuff before I get to the disparity stuff. That blue structure there is the cerebellum. It's a deep structure in the back of the brain. It controls balance, equilibrium, and smooth motor coordination. It's very rare to have a stroke back here. About 4% of all strokes occur in the cerebellum. My hospital, Cedars-Sinai Marina Del Rey, we're seeing about 9 or 10% of our strokes occurring in the cerebellum. So that was the question I was looking to answer. Cerebellar strokes present with difficulty walking, dizziness, or trouble with motor function, not the usual symptoms we think of when we think of stroke. I need to tell you what LVO is. Has anyone heard of an LVO? It's a large vessel occlusion. So a large vessel occlusion is one of the more devastating kinds of stroke. It occurs when a large blood vessel gets blocked, and it leads to severe and disabling deficits. This is a more common type of stroke, and they usually present with facial droop, aphasia, and one-sided weakness. You can see in my picture here, on the left side of your screen, there's a big fat middle cerebral artery full of blood. On the right side of the screen, there's a large vessel occlusion. You can see where a blood vessel should be, and it's blocked. This patient probably presented with severe deficits. EMS screens for these types of strokes in the field. We did that today at the beginning of the presentation. They do the MLAPS, which I won't go through with you, but it's a set of characteristics and risk factors suggestive of stroke, and then they do the LAMS scale, which I did with you guys at the beginning. If the MLAPS is positive and the LAMS is between 4 and 5, a large vessel occlusion is suspected, and they transfer the patient to a comprehensive stroke center, provided the travel time is not longer than 30 minutes. So that's our LA County EMS policy for large vessel occlusion strokes. So now I need to tell you what a stroke center is. Different hospitals have varying levels of what they can do for stroke, from acute stroke ready all the way up to comprehensive stroke center. Comprehensive stroke centers are the gold standard for stroke care. They can do thrombectomies for large vessel occlusions. They can do aneurysmal clipping, and they can do neurosurgery. It's the best place to be if you have a stroke. So my suspicion, I still was thinking about cerebellar strokes. I wasn't on disparities yet. My suspicion was that in LA County, you're always within 30 minutes of a comprehensive stroke center. It's a dense county, there's tons of hospitals. Maybe all the large vessel occlusions are going to the comprehensives, leaving my primary center to see more cerebellar strokes. So I created this map. So there are 52 stroke centers in LA County. That is a lot. Half are primary stroke, half are comprehensive stroke. So I mapped it out to see if they all overlap. That was my hypothesis at the time. This is the map. I hope you can take a look at it. All the blue houses are primary stroke centers. All the red houses are comprehensive stroke centers. If you've lived in LA County for any amount of time, I think something might be jumping out to you. Just kind of take a look and maybe think about it, because As soon as I mapped this, I was like, oh, there's probably a disparity here. It seems like the center of LA, that we know to be highly dense, and majority Hispanic and Black populations, has limited access to comprehensive stroke care. So that was when this presentation, or that was when the current project was born, which is location, 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 examining disparities in access to comprehensive stroke care. I will get to the data, but I want to tell you why this is so important. Black and Hispanic Americans bear a disproportionate burden of vascular risk factors. This includes hypertension, diabetes, hyperlipidemia, and obesity. I'm going to take you through these one at a time. Diabetes prevalence is greater for Black and Hispanic populations than it is for Asian and white populations. Another risk factor for stroke, hypertension. The Black population has a higher rate of hypertension than any other group. Reassuringly, Hispanic Americans have a lower rate of hypertension. And obesity is another risk factor for stroke, and again, Black and Hispanic populations have a greater risk. So Black and Hispanic Americans have a greater risk factor kind of profile. But also, there's disparities in other areas. Black and Hispanic Americans have more strokes. When they do have their strokes, they're less likely to activate EMS. When they do activate EMS, they're less likely to be evaluated at the hospital for their stroke. They're less likely to be transferred to a higher level of care. And ultimately, they suffer greater stroke-related disability, which is unfortunate because we have FDA-approved medications for stroke. This class of drugs is called thrombolytics. We have TPA, or alteplase, and we have TNK, or tenecteplase. They're FDA approved for acute ischemic stroke, but we have to give them to the patient within 4.5 hours of the onset of symptoms. So these patients need to arrive in time. And there's a huge disparity there too. In a 10-year retrospective study, they found that 51% of the white population arrived within the treatment window, that 4.5 hours, compared to 9%, 20%, and 8% for Hispanic, Black, and Asian populations. So there's a clear disparity all the way through the kind of the spectrum of the disease. So back to my project. I had a suspicion that LA County pre-hospital transport policies and physical location of stroke centers was systematically marginalizing Black and Hispanic populations in terms of access to stroke care. But this suspicion is not really amenable to the type of kind of scientific examination we wanted to do, so we created a hypothesis we could test. The hypothesis is that when compared to neighborhoods with no majority, Asian majority, or white majority populations, neighborhoods with Hispanic and Black populations will be further, on average, from comprehensive stroke centers. So we started the work of the data collection. I have to thank the new grads at Marina Hospital for this because they helped with the grind of the data. So there are 122 cities and census designated places in Los Angeles County. I'm just going to call those CDPs for the rest of the presentation because it's hard to say census designated place. For each CDP, we collected a bunch of demographic data, majority race for the neighborhood, median income, percent uninsured, and a host of other socioeconomic risk factors. And we measured the distance from that neighborhood to the closest comprehensive stroke center, and we estimated travel time at 8, 12, and 5 o'clock. And here are our results. Neighborhoods, or CDPs in Los Angeles County with majority Black or Hispanic communities were on average 7.2 miles from the closest comprehensive stroke center. This is compared to 5.4 for CDPs with either white, Asian, or no majority populations. This difference was statistically significant. Travel time was equally as depressing. The range for communities with majority Black or Hispanic populations was 13.8 minutes to 29.4 minutes to the closest comprehensive center. This was compared to 11.1 to 21.2 for those other communities. These time estimates were also statistically significant. But I don't think data captures our imagination or inspires our rage as well as a photo does. So I have a picture to show you. This is LA County mapped over majority race for census tracts. So yellow areas are census tracts with a majority Hispanic population. Green are census tracts with a majority Black population. Blue is majority white, and red is majority Asian. The circles that you see are 10-mile diameter circles centered around each comprehensive stroke center. So kind of an estimate of how far you can travel in a 30-minute time window. And you can see that there is minimal coverage of comprehensive stroke care in the middle of LA, wherever we see the predominantly Black and Hispanic neighborhoods. Even if I generously and frankly unrealistically double the diameter of these circles, there is still a disparity. So it's not all doom and gloom. What can we do as nurses? The first thought that came to me is that we can advocate for our centers to go from from primary stroke to comprehensive stroke, because there are some primary centers dotted in there. So with my data, I was able to do some calculations. If my facility became thrombectomy capable, we would become the closest stroke center for 7 CDPs in Los Angeles County, and 5 of those are either majority Black or majority Hispanic populations. We would also become the closest stroke center to LAX. And to give you a context of like the human element of that, we would become the closest stroke center or a closer comprehensive stroke center for over 200,000 LA County residents. And just for reference, the prevalence of LVO or large vessel occlusion is 44 per 100,000 persons per year. So there will be about 88 large vessel occlusions in that population each year. To make this more concrete, I'll take the example of Inglewood, California. Inglewood is historically a predominantly Black neighborhood. Currently, it is majority Hispanic. Their closest stroke center is Little Company of Mary, which is 10 miles away. If my facility became thrombectomy capable, their closest comprehensive would be closer, 6.4 miles away, which translates to a decrease in travel distance of 3.6 miles and a decrease in travel time of 17.2 minutes. And it would serve a majority Hispanic population of close to 11,000 people. And I do want to say, I can do this analysis for any primary stroke center in Los Angeles County. So if you're interested, I put my email at the end, and you can email me and we can run these numbers for your facility. Additionally, we can advocate for mobile stroke unit placement. If you've never heard of the mobile stroke unit, it's got a CT scanner inside of it. It's got a telestroke camera, so a neurologist kind of beams in and assesses the patient, and it has T and K on board. So they can give thrombolytics in the field as they're traveling, and they can drive themselves to a comprehensive stroke center. Additionally, we need to educate our communities. You saw on the slide about who arrives within the treatment window. It's very few people. By far and away, the #1 reason for not treating a new stroke is the patient did not arrive in time to the hospital. So we need to get out into our communities and teach them the signs of stroke and what to do. These are some of the events we did this year. The top right is at Taste of Soul on Crenshaw Boulevard. We did some outreach there. That is right in the middle of that kind of comprehensive stroke center desert. In the middle of my screen, I have our outreach material for our community events. We have it bilingual, English and Spanish. This is what we use at our events. And if you would like me to share that with you, I can. Just grab my email and email me at the end. Okay. We can write papers, submit abstracts, and share information. And I think it's important to remember that healthcare equity is political. We should attend rallies, we should get involved, we should speak up, speak out, and speak often, and possibly run for office. This event was great. AOC's speech was inspiring. I recommend you look it up on YouTube and watch it. I have some calls to action. Administrators, we think of nurses often as an annoying line item, an expense. But nurses are so much more than that. They prevent disease, they prevent falls, and they do the lion's share of the labor of the medical care in the hospital. Bedside RNs, you can do research. Like I said, if you find a threat, you should pull on it. Preceptors, we don't need our young anymore. I think that's an old school ideology. We need to nurture and elevate our new nurses. And for the new grads and the nursing students, it's hard, but it gets easier. And you come into the field with fresh eyes, a new perspective, and I think a lot of the research and ideas will come from you. It's very important to remember that we do not do this alone. I want to recognize all the people that helped me get to here right now. I have Dr. Song from Cedar's main campus and Lori Pallets from Cedar's main campus. They support me through all of my work when it comes to stroke. Also, I have Maya Lewis. She did my job before me, and she nurtured me through this role. I have to thank my LA family. Lots of them are here with me today. My son, my wife, and my sister, who is a gynecological oncologist and is also a clinical researcher. So chatting with a clinical researcher every weekend is quite useful. And then I have to thank the proximal causes for me standing here. Alicia Truelove, Sandra Keene, and Dr. Martinez Hollingsworth. I have references scattered throughout the presentation. If you need them, I can email them to you. If you want to follow up, you can email or text me. And thank you for your time.
Wow, so I'm teary again because a lot of this stuff you hear about disparities, you know inherently that something is going on, but to see things that are statistically significant mapped out that way, I don't know if you saw, my husband was sort of patting my back like, whew, this is a lot. So we have time for about 2 questions, and then we'll have time after the next session as well, so we can circle back. But any immediate sort of questions or thoughts for James? In the back, go ahead and shout it loud.
When was that research done? How long ago?
Like the one that my research?
Yes.
Oh, a month ago.
Really? Okay.
Like it took a year to do, but we finished it like a month ago.
Oh, that's nice, because I was just Googling to see the comprehensive. I did notice St. Francis is one.
Yeah, in between me finishing that, yeah, there's a new one.
So I was like kind of happy.
Yeah. There's actually been, since I started the project, 2 facilities have switched from primary to comprehensive.
Which one was the other one?
I don't remember. There are 52.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point. The amount of time and energy that goes into these projects, it can take, wait, real quick, do people know the average time period it takes for us to make scientific discovery and then it actually hits the floor, changes the way we practice? Give me a guess. How long does it take from discovery to implementation in the field?
5 years.
5
10, 20, 15.
16 years. So we were still using saline bullets long after we knew that they were spreading bacteria in trach patients, right? It takes time to collect the data, and it also takes time for it to roll out. But I think my question, does anybody else have any questions?
Can I have a
Oh, we got a question in the back. You're about to
Sorry.
get tested, actually.
No, so I think that, I'm James's sister, but you guys can't tell from the picture. I think what's like the most important thing about this research is that it doesn't just describe a disparity, but it gives you solutions or suggestions of what should be next. So much of like the last 20 years of disparities research is look at this difference, but no action items. So I just want to commend your suggestions as your sister, but also as a researcher, because it's sometimes feels like disparities research is a lot of people taking advantage of those differences to publish papers and further their academic careers. And I really think the nursing perspective on this and your making it into action items is just super important and where we should be headed in the disparities research field.
All right, that doesn't count because I'm sure he knew she was going to say that. One more question, right in the front.
It's not a question, it's just like not loud. This job is very close to my heart too. And I think, it takes a lot to get to the conclusion that you got in such a short period of time, because you shared with me that you've been in this role for only 3 years, right? So it's just very commendable to see this in such a short period of time. So you are inspiring me today, and I will reach out to you soon.
Wait, can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to mention about this because there were 2 new stroke centers. They always put them in that ring around the outside. Because I know there are 2 new ones since I started this, but I don't think it changes the results. Yeah, I just want. Yeah.
Is it hard for hospitals to make that transition?
Yeah. I just presented this whole thing to my admin folks at Cedars Marina, and there's so many logistical hurdles, but they really are just logistical hurdles. It's places do it all the time.
Yeah, I do want to call out that have people heard the phrase no purpose without profit? Do people say that at their place? I think the thing that we didn't get to see, but is probably the next step, is there's a very clear return on investment for this conversion. And I rarely see nurses invited to those operational kind of senior leadership meetings, and I'm wondering, what is your next step with this?
Well, it didn't include it here, but I was able to do some analysis too for like the possible rate of how many long-vessel occlusions we do and some like reimbursement related stuff. I presented it to the folks in charge at my hospital, and they're gonna take that to wherever they need to. It's above my head now. But they're gonna work on some stuff. I'll keep advocating, and I think it's not gonna be within a year, but maybe in the next 3 to 4, we may like achieve thrombectomy capable. That would be my ultimate goal.
So I know we have some more questions for James. We're gonna actually move on to our next speaker, but we will have some time with them afterwards. So I'm going to, let's see.